Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Hi
morning.
Mayur,
Good
hi
morning.
everyone.
Hi,
Welcome to
Mayur.
the
Good
question
morning.
and answer edition of Saral. Well, first of all, thank you so much for making Saral our first virtual summit, which held on 30th of May, a big success. So after the resounding success of Saral, on popular demand, we're back now with the discussion focus on addressing some of the queries which are not answered. So we had 5 sessions on 30th of May. So we have some pre-submitted questions. We would like to answer that. So we have structured this discussion in 2 parts. So the first 40 minutes is going to be for queries which were asked during the Saral event, but that were not answered. The last 20 minutes, we'll keep it for the live questions, which are coming from the Q&A section, right? So before we start the Q&A, so I would request all the panelists to give a quick introduction about themselves, starting with Mr. Gautam, Anshuk, Mr. Mohit, and Mr. Pugal.
Hi, my name is Gautam. I'm one of the co-founders at ShipRocket. I also run largely all the operations at the company.
Thank you so much. Mr. Anshuk.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anshuk. I'm one of the co-founders of AdYogi. AdYogi is a marketing automation platform. We work with close to 100 plus e-commerce companies in India for their Facebook and Google ads automation. The platform is designed for getting the best return on ad spend. Over to you, Mayur.
Thank you so much. Mr. Mohit.
Hi, I'm Mohit Gopal. I run strategy, new initiatives, and omni-channel for PayU in India. And I really enjoyed the first Saral session, and I'm really looking forward to this one as well.
Thank you so much. Pugal sir, with you.
Good morning. Hi. My name is Pugal. I'm a senior consultant in Tally. So I've been associated with Tally for over 25 years. And in the last 15 years, I was part of Tally. 2 years back, I retired as associate vice president. Today, I'm a consultant and I run my own firm where, basically I am into Tally. I'm a product and domain expert.
Thank you so much. So let me introduce myself. I'm Mayur Acharya. I look after the West region for Unicommerce, and I'm based out of Mumbai. So without wasting any more time, let me begin with some of the questions for all of you. My first question is to Mr. Gautam. So Mr. Hemant had asked, how do we reduce the RTOs and ensure all transparency with the brand owners who would like to know that all the genuine attempts have been made to deliver an order irrespective of whether it is being a COD or a prepaid order?
So this is, I think, one issue which happens and which is, I think, a industry-wide issue where the last mile partner or the associate which is delivering the goods might not do the delivery or might not try the delivery and still say that they have tried to deliver the product. Also, there are other issues where the associate would have the associate would have asked the seller of the buyer to be able to take the shipment. He called him up, the person did not answer the call, or nobody answered the doorbell, etc. Those are also genuine cases, but at the same time it is very important to understand, to make sure that the next attempt happens and all the new attempts that have to happen are captured in the system, and then delivery happens. So what we have done in our system, at least, is that we run workflows. We run automated workflows where we send SMSs, we send IVRs to the customers, and the customers then put down their request in terms of do they want the parcel or not. Because on the other side, it is also when we ask a seller wants all the shipments to be reattempted, even in cases where the buyer has said no. So which is cost for the courier partner. So it's very important to understand, did the customer really want the parcel or not. So in that case, I think the whole workflow that we run gives us an input. Now the workflow works for about 35-40% reach. It has a 35-40% reach rate. Based on that, we're able to understand where the customer wants a parcel or where it does not want the parcel. At that point of time, we go back to the courier companies and make sure that the delivery happens for those orders.
Thank you so much. I believe Mr. Hemant's question has been answered to reduce the RTOs. Okay, let me move on to another question. This is to Mr. Anshuk. So Mr. Anshuk, Mr. Pranay is asking, what are the best ways for a new e-commerce app to market themselves on social media and reach out to potential customers? How do we go about budgeting and making the most out of the amount we spend?
Right, absolutely. I think when you're starting your marketing, I think I know every e-commerce company today thinks they have a lot of platforms,
Right.
Facebook, Google, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, right? But what we have seen is if you have a limited budget and you want to spend your first 50,000,
Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram will give you the best performance.
Okay.
TikTok, YouTube, Google search, I think can come much later, unless of course your product is a very search oriented product. It has a lot of intent. For example, if you're in apparel, then Facebook, Instagram would be your first platform. If you're selling, let's say, gym protein boxes, right? Then it's a very high intent product. Then maybe Google search will be your first platform, right? So don't try to do multi-platform when you're starting your e-commerce. Second, once you have aligned on a platform, you have picked up a platform, make sure you configure the pixel of the platform and run a conversion campaign. So all these platforms have options of running a traffic campaign, like campaign, click campaign. Don't go for them because for an e-commerce, the intent is to get sales. So run a sales optimized campaign. And the way to do that would be configure your pixel and set up the right campaign objective. I think if you do these 2-3 things, you will be set for success.
Well, thank you so much. I guess now he has the complete planning how we can budget for this pen. Great, thank you. Moving on, the next question to Mr. Mohit. Is there a solution for payment between B2B, basically like a trusted payment, to make sure the seller receives the good from the buyer only after the goods are reached or delivered to what was promised?
Yeah, sure. So the way what a payment gateway aggregator is allowed to do is that we are allowed to hold the money which comes, because the way money flows is it comes in from the issuing bank into our particular nodal account, and from there we settle the account to the merchant. So if the merchant instructs us that this money should only be, or you can only send this money once the goods have been delivered, we can do that. So for example, PayPal tends to do that largely because from the perspective that they work with a bunch of freelancers, they want to ensure that their freelancers have actually delivered on this, on whatever they had supposed to have delivered. So there it's pretty much a standard process, but it can also be done when it comes to India. The RBI says that money has to be settled to the merchant within 3 days of completion of transaction. This definition of completion of transaction, that depends on how we would like to interpret it, right? So it could have happened when the money is moved, or it could happen when the goods and services have actually been delivered. So from that perspective, a payment gateway aggregator has the right to even hold a settlement. And in the case of, we have done that historically wherever we suspect fraud, or we believe that, say, a large airline is going to go bankrupt, or we can see that's about to happen. A bunch of customers have actually booked tickets already, right? And they expect to fly, but that airline is now bankrupt. So it's our right to actually hold the airline's money and ensure that the customers don't suffer, right? So it can be done very, very easily, provided that we've all agreed beforehand that we do this. So this will not be done on the fly. This will a prior agreement to do this, we can do it. So it's not too difficult.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Next question to Mr. Pugal. Mr. Udayan had asked, what is the best way to account for different portals and different business models? Is there a guide, reliable partner? How can we on top of the accounts to ensure timely GST, TDS compliances and reconciliation of payments?
Okay. First, let me answer the second part of the question. How can we be compliant, timely compliant on TDS, GST, and the accounting part?
Right.
So Tally as a ERP, basically we have this 3 major module as an integrated module. One is your financial, which takes care of your accounting and financial statement. The other one is your inventory management system. The inventory management system also has an additional feature like order management, product tracking, then manufacturing process, various things are there. Along with that, we also have GST compliance and also we have TDS compliance. Now, all this basically is one single entry where you capture the integrated information, and the moment you capture, like for example, I make a purchase entry or I make a sale entry, the moment I capture those information, my accounting information gets updated, my inventory information gets updated, and also my compliance aspect is getting captured. So that way, when I'm going to file my return, all I need to do is at the end of the month or at any point in time, I can come back to the, let me take an example of GST. So I want to file my GSTR1 return. So I come to, there is a report which actually gives the entire form, the data gets captured in the entire form in the respective tables. All the user needs to do is just verify, and also Tally what it does, if there are any mismatch or missing information based on the configuration that has been done in the software, and also the mandatory information that is required by the department, these validation is done before you file the return. So you get a exceptional report which says what is the exception or missing information in that in your data. So it allows on the fly, it allows on a real-time basis, it allows you to correct the information, and once you resolve all those information, 100% your data is now ready. All you need to do is just by click of a button, you can generate a JSON file and you can upload. Similarly, in case of TDS also, you can generate the TXT file and you can upload. So this way everything gets captured. Now getting integrated with your online and other thing. Tally, as a default product, we don't have these integrations right now, but we have a large ecosystem of partners where in fact, I can say partners have done wonders. I mean, like you just have to just say what is your wish and you will get it. So basically the partners are, they build a solution, or we call this as customization. They build a solution over and above the Tally product, which gets integrated. Like, you can pull your data from your e-commerce website, you can push the data, you can do the reconciliation. Basically, the entire thing can be done by our partner ecosystem. So you can actually go to our website and then look for the partners. In case, I mean, like if you people need any assistance, I'm always there. You people can write to me. My email ID is pugal.t@tallysolutions.com, and my mobile number is 9900011998. I'll be very happy to help you people to give the right partner reference so that, I mean, like you can meet your expectation.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for sharing your number and your email ID. I'm sure if any queries are there, they can reach out to you directly, either through the email ID or the phone. Anyway, thank you so much, sir. Okay. So my next question is to Mr. Gautam. Okay. Can there be a pin code wise regional profiling of potential bad COD areas by logistic companies as well as payment gateways that can help e-commerce stores to block COD or certain pin codes to improve delivery rates?
So, ShipRocket, in ShipRocket itself, there's a functionality to block pin codes, and we show the customer his pin codes which are showing high number of RTOs. So you can download the pin code list, remove it from your serviceability list, or maybe make those pin codes prepaid on your shopping cart. So we have that functionality. Beyond that, we are coming up with a RTO prediction engine, which is a AI-powered machine learning engine. It takes care of a lot of things. So why you need a complex system to do it is because if you're sending us sunglasses worth 200 rupees, on the contrary, you're sending a branded shoe, the RTO percentages on both of them will be very different. Even if the location and the pin code is very same, right? It is very, very different. Both on COD, it can range from 5% to 25% whatsoever. So that is why it is important that, if we go on marking, we know which are the pin codes which have high RTO. But again, because different customers will be sending different goods, and the category is also very important. We're coming out with a new engine to guide the customer based on these logics. But today also you can see which are the pin codes which are high RTO for you and remove it from your serviceability.
Okay. I hope that answered the questions. Anyway, thank you so much. So next question to Mr. Anshuk. While tracking the source of the traffic leads that are coming to the platform, most of our leads show as direct traffic. How can we get the exact source of these leads, and which platform is good to track the traffic or leads by channel?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Just one clarification, Mayur. The question said leads, or the question is talking about sales? It's talking about leads, right?
Source of the traffic or the leads
Okay,
that are coming from the platform. Yeah, coming to the platform.
Understood. See, this is a very common problem a lot of us face. There have always been so many clients which we work with. They get back to us and say, look, our Google Analytics is giving us a different picture of the sales which are coming, and the ad account gives a different picture, right? And there are many reasons why it can happen. How to solve it, of course, we'll quickly come to it. One common reason is, let's say if you're driving using the platform like Facebook, now Facebook has a different attribution model. Very simply, if somebody clicks on a Facebook ad and let's say a few days later organically goes to the browser, types in your URL and converts on your website, Facebook will say it's my sale. Okay, because Facebook says that anybody who has clicked on my ad for the next 28 days, if they convert, it is my sale. Okay. Google Analytics, on the contrary, has something called a last click attribution by default, which means if the last click was you typed on the host on the browser, the domain name, and you went to the website and purchased, Google Analytics will tag it as a direct sale. Okay, direct sale or direct lead, both are same. Okay. So that is why the main reason why the difference occurs. Of course, there are 2 or 3 more other reasons, but slightly more detailed. We can discuss that separately. Now, how do you solve this problem? Okay, so first what we need to understand is this is not exactly a bug of the sort. This is a reality of the industry. Any marketing or any sale which happens has multiple touch points. It can touch your Facebook ad account, it can touch your Google ads, it can touch organic, right? So whom to attribute the sale is more of a science than actually saying that these numbers are incorrect. Okay, so once you understand the difference, my suggestion would be there are 2 ways you can look at it. One, on Google Analytics, there is something called a multi-funnel attribution. Okay, while default Google Analytics shows you a last click attribution, there is also an option of multi-funnel. In multi-funnel, you can actually look at all the touch points. So Google Analytics will show that the first touch point was from Facebook, the second touch point was direct, and this is the lead which we have got. So what you see as direct in your default view on Google Analytics can be seen as Facebook plus direct in your multi-funnel attribution. So that's one solution. Don't rely on just the default view of Google Analytics. The second solution could also be that you can refer to your ad account numbers, which means you can refer to the number on Facebook, you can refer to the number on Google, fire your conversion pixels so that when a purchase or a lead comes, you inform Facebook, you inform Google. Once you do that in Facebook ad account and Google ad account, you'll be able to see those numbers. So 2 solutions, either rely on your Facebook and Google ad accounts, or if you want to rely on Google Analytics, go for multi-funnel attribution and not the default attribution.
Okay. Thank you so much. Let me move on to the next question. This is to Mr. Mohit. Which are the platforms which can be integrated with PayU to collect the payment instantly? Interesting.
To collect payments instantly.
Yes.
All right. So normally, right, pretty much in most cases, you tend to have a T+1 cycle for credit cards and a T+2 cycle for net banking, right? However, what PayU can do is, in the event that we believe that the merchant is trustworthy enough and that there is a long-standing relationship, we do what is called a T0 settlement. That once the transaction happens, the same day we settle to the merchant, right? So here we are taking that slight risk that the merchant within that 1 day span shuts down the business and runs away and then has not delivered on services. So there's a chargeback risk, but that's one way of getting it done. So it doesn't really matter in that case when the bank settle to us. Another way which is possible is you have a bunch of payout products, and also there are combination products with pay-ins and payouts or insta payment products, which are largely which operate on NEFT, RTGS or UPI rails. These are largely used, for example, there's a game of skill merchant, say where somebody goes into play, say a rummy, right? There you have winnings which the customer then wants in their account. So there it's actually a payout product, which is from the merchant to push the money back to the customer. Similarly, in a bunch of B2B payments, you can actually have, it is actually bank transactions, NEFT, RTGS or UPI, which is also an IMPS transaction at the end of it. So where all of this can happen in real time, or near real time, but it's just those are not classic credit card, debit card transactions. And even there are some variations on card payments wherein there are schemes have come out with products like Visa Direct or MasterCard Send, which allow us to actually push money into the original card which was used for a particular transaction, or in some cases we even use for, say, refunds, for example. And there are other ways of doing it. For example, for IRCTC, for refunds we use UPI to make a payout, right? Because you really want to gratify the customer immediately. So there are a bunch of different use cases which are out there, but in classic card and or net banking services, money comes to a payment gateway aggregator in T+1 or T+2, and then usually settlements happen in T+1 or T+2 respectively.
Thank you so much. Moving on, question to Google sir. What is the best way to do reconciliation of e-commerce entries? Commission, sales, returns, reimbursement on Tally. Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear?
Yeah. You
Yes,
heard the question, sir?
Yeah.
Okay.
I heard about,
Yeah.
I heard the question.
Yeah.
I had actually answered about that. See, the default Tally does not have those information where you can port it into the system. The hard way of doing it is that, you download it and then you start entering it, you can do the reconciliation and all those things. But then it is an ideal thing because you will have a lot of transactions. Like I mentioned in my earlier answer, we have partners, who do this kind of integration. Right, so it depends on, they have, and today many partners have a ready-made suite made. You really don't have to get into a scope discussion and various other things. There are partners who are, in a very advanced stage, and they have a very large installation and integration with the various other software. Like I mentioned, you can always go to a website and then look into it. You can call me or you can call anybody in our Tally. The number is available on our website. So we will be very glad to help you people in integrating any kind of software information. It can be a push or pull data, can be done through our partner ecosystem.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. Next question. ShipRocket. Okay. Can I add ShipRocket to my website via API? Mr. Gautam, this is a question for ShipRocket. Can I add ShipRocket to my website via API?
When you say you want to add it, you mean the tracking or something else? So I have an answer for tracking. So if you want to put a tracking link or a tracking button, one can do it very easily. We have, for example, if you go to mamaearth.com, the tracking link over there, or the tracking field over there, where you put your ABL number or your order ID to search your order, is powered by ShipRocket. Similarly, if you were looking for a more complex integration, one can do that also using our APIs. So a sample would be go to samsung.in or samsung.com/in, where when you're doing a checkout or you're on the product page, you could simply select. You could just simply select, when you're selecting a product and you're putting a pin code, you can give you the estimated delivery time of the order along with the payment method in the system, if you have used our system to do that. That is largely it's possible across the system. Our support or our business development team can help you implement those as well, if you like to.
Sure. Thank you so much. Next question, Mr. Anshuk. Social media marketing is more for B2C. Can you suggest for B2B, like what more we can do to have a wide customer base in B2B, especially in the fashion industry?
Yes, absolutely. B2B, so I think the common notion is social media is for B2C. That's absolutely right. Even I think that of all the brands we work with, around almost all of them are B2C. Having said that, we have seen some good success in a few B2B brands also, and B2B brands in the fashion segment. Like for example, we work with this brand called Design Cart, and they are a B2B brand. They sell these beads and buttons and these kind of things, more targeted towards B2B customers, which can use them for their own merchandise. Okay? They have been using Facebook and Instagram quite aggressively and getting very good traction from a B2B standpoint. And when I'm saying very good traction, I'm talking about like a 5x or a 6x on their ad spend. So my suggestion would be, I know we might think that LinkedIn is a good platform for B2B. I think all of us might come to that. But frankly, I think LinkedIn ads are still in the evolving phase. We have ourselves done a lot of testing on LinkedIn as a platform. It doesn't give you that good returns. So my suggestion is, even for B2B, go for Facebook and Instagram, maybe more Facebook, less Instagram. Give it a shot. Try running paid ads on these platforms. A good likelihood you will get good returns even for your B2B business. If you look at AdYogi is also a B2B business. And even for us, the primary channel of customer acquisition is Facebook. All of us might think LinkedIn should be that one, but that's not the case at the moment. So don't disregard Facebook and Instagram from a B2B standpoint also, I would say.
Okay. Great input.
I'll just add one small thing, Mayur.
Sure.
When targeting on Facebook and Instagram, there are two fields which work really well. One is there is an option to target people who are page admins of Facebook. Now, if you're a page admin, the likelihood of you being a business is slightly higher. So use that filter. Second, also Facebook provides you a filter of small business owners or entrepreneurs. I think that filter also works quite well.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for this input. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to another question. This is to Mr. Mohit. Can payment gateway give a risk score? Very interesting. I think just like credit score, when we decide to go COD for a customer D2C.
A very, very interesting question. Historically, the answer would have been no, right? But what we had done at PayU, and I think other payment gateway aggregators also thinking in the same direction, is we had come out with a buy now, pay later product called LazyPay. Now with LazyPay, what we actually do is we use customer information and data, both our own as well as from, not just from agencies, but also with our partnerships with telcos and social media platforms, and actually build a customer indicator. Like we have a global customer vault, so we understand this customer. This is used both with internal risk scoring at PayU, as well as to try to, in some cases, we have now started working with players. I don't want to get into the names, but where we actually give indicators which include, say, affluence indicator. Say a very large, say a food company wants to know, sure, they've got this customer on their app, but they don't know whether this customer comes from what demographic. Maybe they're pitching an entirely wrong type of product to that customer, right? So somebody like us, we can actually give them that information. Similarly, when it comes to anything on the risk side, or we even would have refund rates or chargeback rates by customer, right? So you can actually build a very interesting risk sort of personality of the customer based on past track record. We can also see sometimes the same customer is coming in from different IPs, or he's using an IP switcher of some sort. So there are very interesting ways we can actually model all of this. But having said that, this is a mammoth task, right? We started this about last year, and just the process of deduping individuals, because for example, you may have used an HDFC credit card for one transaction. Somewhere else you're using a long tail net banking transaction. The third time you're using an UPI with a different handle, right? How do we know all of them are you? So that itself, just to understand who that person was difficult. And second is PayU, of course, being Amsterdam listed, our parent company is listed there. So compliance with both GDPR globally and with what we understand of the new Indian Privacy Act as it's going to come into force. So both of those were other complications, which meant there were very easy approaches which we could have taken, which we really didn't want to do. But now we have built a very interesting stack. And I'll be very honest, this conversation we are actually having with some very large players in the market, which include credit card companies, large e-com players, because all of them understand that the bureau covered market in India is very, very small, and it has only got loan repayment history. So what a payment gateway company has got is something very, very different. And that's the real reason I feel that neobanking, while it's an overused word, will eventually take off, because there's a lot of information out there which banks or traditional bureaus don't really cover well. So, but a superb question, and it sort of leads us into PayU strategies over the next few years as well. But
yeah. Thank you. Pugil sir, there is another interesting question. I think this is all about updates. Tally has been the backbone of the accounting and finance industry. It has many versions like Tally ERP9 and Tally 7.2, etc. Is there a forum where users or a CA community get an update on different products to refer or choose which version works for their business, or any relevant updates on product enhancement from Tally?
Okay. First is, I mean, all these upgrades, I mean, like basically one is that depending on the technology development and various other major uh, uh, compliance changes that happens, which is an external force. So then what happens, we come out with a new version. Then you have a normal update, but then every version is just an upgrade from the existing version.
Right.
So like I mentioned, the accounting, inventory and compliance part takes care. Now let's say GST is supposed to come with the revised return, hopefully in the month of October. And when that comes, then we need to come out with a new update. It's just a simple version update. Then there is a major change that happens where we come out with so we started with Tally, I mean very well recognized as Tally 4.5, then we had 5.4. Now from 4.5 to 5.4 when we come, so it was from accounting we moved into a major thing where we got the inventory part also. So like this, wherever there is a major change happens, a new major module is coming into it, then there is a complete version change. So we have in fact, we on our website, every detail, every release, whether it is a minor release or a major release, the Tally users will get an auto mail, and you can actually read that what are the changes that is there and how these changes could really benefit them. Supposing, let us assume there is some change that has happened in the new release of Tally, which is not relevant for me. For example, we have compliance for international market, various other like UAE and other things. So there are some change that is happening. It is not necessary that you have to update all those versions. I mean, like some new releases come, if it is not really going to impact that, you can, I mean, like you don't have to do that. And supposing subsequently after 3-4 releases some changes happen, and that is relevant for you, when you update, every update gets automatically updated. And now in Tally, updating to the new release is very, very simple. You open Tally, then it is going to tell you what is the release, what is the version of Tally that you are using, and it will also tell you what is the version that is available. All you need to do is just click on the button. In less than 2-3 minutes, you get the latest update auto installed on your system. Then we also have a forum. Like for example, we have especially we have two major forum. One is the Chartered Accountant Forum, where we have a dedicated page for the chartered accountants, which is community.tallysolutions.com. Probably I will share that to you, Mayur, later.
Sure.
You can share it with the audiences. So community.tallysolutions.com is for an exclusive community page for the chartered accountants. Then we also have this GST Pro, where the tax consultant and the auditors are there. So as a Tally user, if I want to get a help of some professional to guide me on my compliance or help me on implementing Tally for my businesses, they can go to this exclusive page, and they can actually locate the GSTP. We call this as GST practitioners, who could not just GST practitioners, they are also would help you. They are basically auditors and tax practitioners. So these are the areas where information is available. As a Tally user, you will definitely get a mail for any update that happens.
So all the Tally users would be getting an email. So
Yes,
about
yes.
updates and upgradation.
Updates, yes.
So good to know that there is a forum also available. So I guess
Yes.
the audiences have the answer where they can go and refer to in terms of getting all the product enhancement information from Tally. Great. Thank you so much, sir. Okay, let me move on to the next question. Next question, Mr. Gautam. How is ShipRocket helping e-commerce sellers with warehousing solution?
Will sound like a sales pitch, guys. But we just launched our fulfillment solution. We call it SRF,
Yeah.
Ship Rocket Fulfillment, where we have it's very important to understand why fulfillment makes sense for a small user also. We all know that we all go to Amazon and buy. The main reason that we go and buy it from Amazon is because the shipment comes to you faster. The simplistic reason behind getting that shipment faster to you is getting it in 2 days is really because it's sitting next to you, somewhere closer to you.
Right.
That is where we have launched our warehousing. So we can in a very easy model, no asset, no minimum guarantees model. We have built a fulfillment solution where we're opened Bangalore warehouse now, and we're launching Delhi, Bombay, and Kolkata in the next month actually, where you can just come on to, based on your shipping number of shipments that you do, you can start using it, and you will get a particular price which will constantly make sense for you. Now, what we've done is, what we've calculated is that if you're able to place your goods closer to the customer, you approximately save close to about 5 to 6 rupees on every shipment, and you're actually able to get the shipment faster to the customer. So it's really a win-win.
Yeah.
For the seller, obviously for the customer itself, and because there is no such platform today which can support sellers or online sellers to be able to ship orders from warehouses or third-party warehouses in such a format. So if you have 500 orders, you can still place those goods with us. You have 400, 300, 400 orders, it still makes sense for you to place those goods. But if you go to a larger player, they will always look for a minimum guarantee. They will always look for some asset utilization or asset investment that they have done. A portion of that will become a minimum guarantee for you. So it's very interesting. We just launched it. We just made that page live on our website also. So one can go and put in their request, and somebody from the team will call. Unicommerce is also one of our partners in that. So a lot of users who are using Unicommerce, we're building the integration into Unicommerce so that you can run your fulfillment from your own warehouse through Unicommerce and still use our warehouse. And because our warehouse will be linked to Unicommerce system. So I think it's very, very, very interesting, especially in COVID times when getting people is difficult, getting manpower to function is difficult. Such professional formats or organizations, warehouses will be able to streamline a lot of these things.
Very, very true. Very, very true. Thank you so much for answering that question. The next question is, Mr. Anshuk, what is the ideal budget for running Facebook ads for a new apparel brand for an average price of say 1,500?
Correct. I think when you're starting any e-commerce brand and starting marketing for it, if few things come into consideration, of course, the Facebook ads have to be configured correctly. But what is also very important is the website conversion rate has to be correct. So people should be able to land on your website, add products to cart, and make a purchase. Now, it might sound very simple, but the entire flow actually has to be tested rigorously. So what we typically recommend to a lot of brands we work with is to start with a reasonably small budget. Don't really start spending the big bucks unless you are able to verify your e-commerce funnel. Okay. Now, what is a small budget? Of course, if it's too small, then optimization becomes a problem because very simply on Facebook, the structure is you create a few campaigns, a prospect campaign and a remarketing campaign. Then in each campaign, you have a couple of targeting options and a few ads, right? So if the budget is too low, the problem is you may not be able to create the right structure. If the budget is too high, you might end up burning the money without verifying your funnel. Okay. So what's the right budget? Typically, I think somewhere around 1 lakh to 2 lakh per month is a good starting budget.
Okay.
That helps you. It's best of both worlds. It's not too low that optimization doesn't work. It's not too high, in my opinion, so that you end up burning a lot of money. So that budget would be good. Make sure that whatever budget you put it behind, as I was telling, sale optimization campaign, conversion optimization campaign. I know a lot of brands think that let me just push some budget into branding and traffic and eventually I'll get sales. Doesn't work in online purely because see, if you're a physical retailer, you have a 3 kilometer radius, 5 kilometer radius, you can push a lot of awareness budget. If you're an online brand, your target customer is entire India. Okay. Right. You start spreading awareness, you will run out of money before you spread the awareness, because India is big, right? 200 million people, you start spreading awareness, you pretty much run out of money.
Correct.
Right? So don't focus on saying that first 1 lakh, let me get the traffic, let me get likes, let me get awareness. Every rupee, right from the first rupee, should be spent on getting sales. It might sound anomaly or sound contrary to what you would have heard. I know a lot of agencies say that let's do a branding for 6 months and eventually you'll get sales. That eventually never comes. So that will be my take.
So you suggest 1 lakh per month would be an ideal budget for running a Facebook AdSense. That
yes.
1 or 2 lakhs.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on. Next question to Mr. Mohit. Do I need GST number to be associated with the PayUmoney? If yes, how do I submit?
We have different actually platforms. Mm-hmm. So for our long tail merchants, you would not need a GST number. Mm-hmm. But for our larger merchants, enterprise merchants, yes, you would need GST numbers.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. So Mr. Pugal, the next question. How can a user access Tally remotely, particularly when the entire accounting team at many firms is operating remotely now?
Okay. We have this remote access in Tally, which is almost about 6-7 years back. We had come out with the where the best part of this remote access in Tally is, as of today, we don't have a cloud environment. So the data is stored on your local system, and through internet, Tally, through our TallyNet server, we just act as a conduit where with authorization, people can actually access the data remotely anywhere in the world. They can access the data. And the best part is, you can update the information through the remote access. And the one difference that we brought in the remote access is that, in a normal remote RDP system, what you do is, you can't take a copy. Like, for example, I want to take a printout of a document or an invoice. I am at a client's place and the client is now asking me, can you just give me this invoice? I don't have the invoice so that I can make a payment. No, I mean, like, for me to collect the money, I can't leave this place of my client. Right. So what I can do is on my laptop, I can access my company's data remotely, and then I can connect to the client's printer and I take a printout at the client's place and hand over him the document. So we have those remote access. Now, recently, about 3 months back, we had also came out with a new version where you can do, and so this remote access was like Tally to Tally. So you need to have a Tally so that you can access your data. So now we have through web browser, independent of your device, you can actually now see major reports of Tally. Only thing is you can't update as of now. You can see various reports of Tally through web browser. So it means you can use an you can now see the information on mobile, tablet, laptop, and you don't need Tally for you to actually access those information. So these are the things, and it is very easy for setting up. You really don't need a techie to come and set it up. It is very simple, very easy, and we have helpline for registered users. They can contact, and it can be done.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Okay. Moving on. Next question is related to ShipRocket. Okay. Can there be a pin code wise regional profiling of potential bad COD areas by logistics as well as payment gateway that can help e-commerce stores to block certain pin codes for COD to improve delivery rates?
Mayur, I actually answered that question in a different way, the first one that you asked.
Yeah.
If you want, I can speak about it again.
Sure.
Do you want me to speak about it again?
No, I think that was the second question which you have answered. Yes. Okay. Okay. Let me move on to the next question. Okay. This is to Mr. Anshuk. How can we ensure that our product is targeting the right users on FB, given that there are a lot of complaints about these platforms having many fake users?
Yes, that's true. I think till about 2015-16, fake clicks was actually a reality in the digital space. In those years, a lot of people used to work on cost per click and used to work on traffic to the website, right? The challenge with cost per click and traffic to the website is there is no metric for the quality of a click, right? How do you know that this traffic is good traffic, bad traffic, poor traffic, right? Today, I can technically run a campaign in, let's say, a remote city in India, like maybe a northeast or something, which is not relevant traffic. And purely because that city has less competition, you will get a click for like 50 paisa on Facebook, right? So that's the whole challenge with a click. Okay. Now, how do you circumvent it? Very simple. Like I was telling before also, have the clear objective of sales or conversions. Okay. Because that is what you should be worried about, right? There are two kinds of campaigns. You run a traffic campaign, you get 1 lakh traffic on your website, and maybe you'll get 5 sales. Okay. You get a conversion campaign, you get 10,000 people on your website, and you will end up getting 50 sales. Okay. So that's the difference between a traffic and a conversion campaign. So whenever you are running anything on Facebook or engaging an agency, don't work on the traffic. Don't tell them that, look, I want to get 1 lakh people to my website, because they can get 1 lakh people easily, right? The quality will be very questionable and you'll never be able to measure it, right? So to answer your question, long story short, one way of removing fake traffic, junk traffic, non-targeted traffic is optimize everything for conversions. Look at everything from a lens of how many sales are you getting from Facebook, and then you won't worry about the junk traffic, because out of 10,000 people, if let's say 1,000 people are junk and coming from a remote area in the country, you don't worry about it because you're still getting those 50 sales, right? So that's how I think you can prevent that worry or concern.
Okay, thank you so much for answering this question. Okay, Mr. Gautam, there is a question. So most of the time, customers complain that delivery person did not attempt and product gets back to the warehouse. This is impacting on sales and increasing courier costs. How to tackle this?
I tried answering that question again, but I understand it's a wider problem, and okay, let me take a different track on this. The shipment goes out, the customer, the courier boy is outside a customer's house, or he's in the vicinity, he calls the customer. At that point of time, the customers do not answer. For example, I'm sitting in this meeting, I will not answer any phone call, right?
Right.
And at that point of time, if I do not answer the phone call, he does not have any way, but he will go back, and then it will go in the next milk run of the next morning. Those are genuine issues. Those are absolutely genuine issues where buyers, I might not have a COD money ready with me. I want to send him back. So those are genuine reasons why we call it an NDR, non-delivery reasons. So any NDR would have happened. On an average, I believe, and this is not a market, and please don't quote me anywhere, but I think the fake remarks, or where the courier company is not sharing the correct information, ranges from a 5 to 8% based on locations.
Okay.
Now, the best way to protect yourself is to be able to avoid those pin codes where the RTO percentages are very, very high. That is one area.
Mm.
But second is you can't do it that across, right? Because these instances happen everywhere. But some areas are bad areas where a particular courier company does not the hub or the location or the people in that location or certain set of courier boys do not do the deliveries in a proper fashion. There you can actually use the RTO prediction or high RTO pin codes that you've got and then stop them from further on. But but the problem, one area that we really focus as a company is to be able to get, we call something called RAD or first OFD. That means
Okay.
the shipment, to get the shipment out for delivery for the first time. We that is the number that we're looking for. So we focus on making sure that the OFD number keeps moving higher, and we keep pushing courier companies to move the OFD number. That means if the shipment reaches the destination, it has to get out for delivery the same day.
Right.
Or if it has come in the night, it has to get out for delivery in the next day. Based on that information, we work backwards. We work with the courier companies. We measure if there is any delay in the line haul, if there is any delay in RAD. RAD is reached at destination, but not OFD. So these are some areas that we work on to make sure that the first OFD happens in time. Now it is understood that if the first OFD happens on time, your RTOs will fall.
Okay.
So that is one area that we really focus on. Second is if you have got a fake remark. Now the courier boy has given a fake remark. We run automated workflows. Even if you order something which any website which is powered by ShipRocket, and you have got a non-delivery, what will happen is that we will capture the non-delivery response from the courier company. Say the courier company said the customer did not want the parcel.
Yeah.
At that point of time, an IVR will, at the on a real time basis, an IVR will get activated. That IVR will ask the user if as per the courier company, you had refused this parcel. Please press 1 if you still want it. Press 2 if you don't want it. Similarly, there are SMSs and there are emails which go out to the customer. The customer can come on the tracking page and do actions like that also. So the entire workflow is available. Now, once that customer goes through that workflow and fills this information, we hold the shipment till the next 72 hours. Between that time, if we're able to get a customer response, we reinitiate a attempt for that customer and make sure the delivery happens. So it's really important that the customer gives the information in such cases, and we are able to take action and push the courier company to get the shipment delivered. Again, this whole system that we have put in place and manpower around it and a call center around it is able to take the percentage a little higher. But there is a whole lot of work that I think still has to go. There is a lot of disciplining that has to be done with the courier companies. We constantly do that with the top level management. But COVID times, we were working on our numbers, and we were able to reach a good healthy number by the end of February, March. But again, COVID came in and everything crashed back.
Yeah.
It is really dependent on people, right? Those individuals which are going and delivering, some of them are newly hired now. They are not trained. They do not follow the same goodwill that they used to have with the company, etc. All those factors come into play, and right now the situation is such, and we are trying our best. Frankly, we are trying our best. We are working day and night to make sure that these deliveries happen.
Yeah. Thank you for answering this. I think best way to tackle this current the problem which the gentleman has mentioned. Okay, let me move on to the next question. This question to Mr. Mohit. For cross-border sales, what the compliances required from FEMA point of view, that is obtaining shipping bills from customs and submission of shipping bills to banks for each shipment, etc. This I found is very cumbersome and costs a lot for a retailer. Is there a solution for this?
Yeah, so this is actually a complicated piece. So there are two types of things. One is where you're accepting foreign card transactions, right? So that is relatively simple. It could be It could be an expat who's sitting in India or an NRI who's come home on a holiday and they're doing anything, right? In this case, it's just a foreign car transaction.
Yeah.
But when you're actually moving goods outside of India or into the country, then effectively you need to go through the customs route. So what most people do is they tend to, when they are shipping goods overseas, they send it through courier companies marked either as samples or for personal use, etc., which is technically a non-compliant way of doing it. So the correct way of doing that would be to follow the OPGSP route, which is where the RBI has basically said that payment gateways come under a particular scheme where they have to work with a partner bank, and then that partner bank is responsible for all compliances. So effectively, you are going through the customs route, but the RBI has delegated that power to a partner bank which does it with the payment gateway aggregator.
Okay.
So that's the right way of doing it. This is, however, not really taken off in India, largely because of the rulings have been slow, and the banks, the burden of compliance is so strict on them that they have been very slow to work with payment gateways as well on this one, right? However, pretty much all leading payment gateways are working with different OPGSP constructs and with banks to get this done. But as of now, it does remain a gray area, and it is not the easiest of things to do. So I will agree with what the questioner said rather than actually offer any true solutions at this point.
Okay. Thank you. So, okay, we have another 5 more minutes before I move ahead with the live question and answer. So let me ask one last question from the the pre-submitted one to Mr. Pugal. Does Tally have any online service provider directory for ad hoc accounting needs? Pugal sir?
Okay. I had actually, in fact,
Sir, you are on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, fine. So I had mentioned that we have two influencer community where we have a dedicated page on our website where you can. One is the chartered accountant community, where you can go to https community.tallysolutions.com. You get to know. I mean, there are a lot of sharings, and where they also probably you can contact them for professional services and other thing. The other set of influencers that we have is we have a program where we call these tax consultants and GSTPs as GST Pro, and we have a dedicated page where Tally users can locate a GSTP in their area and see their profile, and in case if they want any kind of assistance from these professionals from the accounting or compliance aspect, they can get in touch with them, and they can basically get their services. So these are the two area. One is the chartered accountant influencer page, and for the GSTPE it is https tallysolutions.com/GSTP-locator/.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Okay. Now let me move on to the live questions. Okay. So this first question, Mr. Gautam, how important is setting up a company warehouse for fulfillment services? At which stage should an e-commerce marketplace, a multi-brand retailer go for it?
From a marketplace perspective, I would not put my view forward, because marketplaces, it's always good to have a hybrid model where some of the products which are selling, mostly selling regularly, or they should be warehoused and they should be shipped from a warehouse. But if the goods are not if the goods are not regular and the demand is not, you can't plot the demand properly, then it is best to make sure that it is done through the partner, to the vendor itself, the vendor who's selling the goods in the marketplace. But overall, from a time period perspective, if anybody wants to start doing fulfillment, I think there is you can start doing it the first day. If you even have like 5 orders, you can start doing it immediately. We don't have a limitation in number of inventory that you can store. We don't have any limitation in number of orders you can ship. And we are not asking for any guarantees, or we're not asking you okay, you have to, for example, give me this much asset utilization or etc., which other large warehouses do ask for. But now the models are available where you can start doing fulfillment immediately through a partner like ours.
Sure, sure. Thank you. Mr. Anshuk, the next question. How do you provide ad automation services for sustainable products, e-commerce sellers, like organic, vegan, environment conscious?
Right, absolutely. We have seen good results coming from organic vegan segment as well. I'll give an example. We work with this brand called Two Brothers Organic Farms. They sell ghee and ghee products, and we've been able to scale them very rapidly at a very good return on ad spend. One key important thing in this segment, which I've seen, is to keep a close eye on the average order value. Okay. Now some brands which come to us, they typically sell like a 300-400 rupee product, because organic products can actually, there is a range of values when it comes to organic products. The challenge comes is if you're selling a 300 rupee product, profitability becomes very difficult, because you end up paying Facebook for the traffic, right? And Facebook charges you 10-15 rupee for every good customer to come to your website, and conversion rates are not more than 3%. So you end up paying 400 rupee to get a customer, and the customer buys only 300 rupee product. Okay. So unless you tell me that the repeat value of the customer is so high that even after losing money on the first purchase, you can make money later, it's totally fine. The alternative could be even the first purchase itself, sell something for more than 1,000 rupees. Okay. And now how do you club your organic products to make something for 1,000 is something you will have to think about. Two Brothers did it very well. They had a 2,000 rupee ghee box. It sells like a charm. They get very good sales from major metros in India. And because it's 2,000, they are able to sell profitably. They would probably be making a 4x or a 5x. So that's one key challenge for an organic kind of an industry. If you can overcome that, I think Facebook is a good platform.
Okay, thank you. There's another question for Mr. Mohit. How are you enabling contactless payments now that people are scared to accept cash payments? The COVID related.
No, I fully agree with you. In fact, so many discussions around this. The simplest, of course, is see, if you're on pure online, then actually you are contactless, right? The exception is when you have cash on delivery type of services, which many of our large merchants have. So there, the entire thing is to actually do what is called digital on delivery, wherein instead of collecting cash, the delivery boy or whoever is coming in there has got multiple options. Either a payment link can be sent at the time or before the before delivery. Alternately, there could be a QR which he carries, which the gentleman who is receiving the package scans. So there are multiple ways of doing it, right? And also reminders that you can convert even a cash on delivery back to prepaid. So a lot of companies, including say a Flipkart, actually for cash on delivery orders, then sends a reminder that you can actually pay on prepaid as well, right? The other way is when it comes into offline, there are two things. First, of course, is with cards, you can have tap and pay, which now the RBI has relaxed some of the restrictions which was formerly there on that, including the amount one. Second is you can actually use BQR or any QR solution. Now, why I personally prefer Bharat QR is largely because then it does not matter which phone app you're using or which net banking app you've got. All of them can be used to scan the QR, and you can also do card payments through QR. It's not just UPI. So I think BQR, which was not doing too well because unlike the other QR solutions which had got very active promotion by the super apps, but I think BQR is automatically, naturally contactless. So that's one very interesting way of doing it. Another way is what PayU's recently done, which is with the monuments, right? Which is with whether it's Qutub Minar or the Taj Mahal, working with Canara Bank and the Archaeological Survey of India, is to reduce lines at the counters, right? We've actually got QRs, but those QRs basically redirect to the online payment page itself, which is powered by PayU. So it's a super easy way of ensuring that you move away from the line so people can scan that. It opens up the payment page, therefore it's just a payment link in some ways, and you can make a payment online without standing next to other people. So we're just repurposing existing technology to find better solutions. But in due case of time, right, EPOS as well as pin on glass will both ensure that contactless moves in a different way. Eventually, I genuinely feel not too far away in the future, people will
Mm.
all have chips embedded in and just under their skin, and you'll probably be able to make payments in a very different way. And this pilots on this are actually happening in Europe as we speak. Nothing to do with COVID. It was just happening in general, right? So payments is moving so fast that whatever you think is possible 3 years, we will actually have exceeded all of that.
Okay, okay. Well, there are a lot of questions which have come in, so we'll have to stretch it for another 5 to 10 minutes. Let me pick up the next question. So, Mr. Pugal, this question is for you. There are a lot of SMEs and MSMEs are planning to go online, and they are users of Tally software. How is Tally supporting them, especially during these testing times? Is there any feature Tally has, or through some partnership they can help them go online?
Online in the online means basically the e-commerce route, right? Where
Right.
they
So,
can
yeah,
sell
this,
online and then integrate with Tally.
right, right, right.
Right? My understanding is right.
Yeah, they want to go and sell online. So these are the small SMEs or the micro
Okay.
businesses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Like I said, the default Tally, you don't have online integration, right? So we have our partners where basically they have modules developed for this online integration, where the best part is, I mean, like, all those see in the online environment, very important thing is, one is the reconciliation becomes a big problem, right? And the returns becomes a big problem. Then COD, advance payment, all this reconciliation, everything. Our partners have actually created additional module which gets integrated into Tally. So you make a sales invoice, I can push that sales invoice from Tally into the online, and all those integration can be done. Only thing, the default Tally does not have this feature, and it is not very expensive. I mean, it depends on
Okay.
the kind of requirement that you need. It's not
Okay.
that you need to have an end-to-end solution. And the best part is, Tally always allows incremental implementation. So
Okay.
you can start with baby step, see what things are required, and where our partners will definitely be guiding them, and then giving them the right solution. The other thing that you can also look into it is that what I would like to mention here, since a lot of questions are coming with integration and various other things,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
also have a Tally app shop. You can, I mean, if you're a Tally user, you can go to the thing, or you can go to our website. And there are a lot of partners who have developed a lot of additional requirements or customizations or needs, like reports, dashboards, then various other things are there, which the people, I mean, like, which the Tally user can see what is requirement, whether these are available, because these are validated and verified by Tally, and then they get uploaded. So they have trial period also, from 7 to 15 days trial period they have. And again, there is no technical issue. All they need to do is, if they want to see a trial, just click there, it automatically gets installed. They can have a trial of whatever requirement. So they can actually see there are a lot of solutions which are there, from a small adding a column or adding a field to MIS report or a dashboard. So this is another area where SMEs who are using Tally can actually benefit, because this will be very, very cheaper. It will be at a throwaway price, since it's going to be available on the Tally shop.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. Moving on, let me see the next question. Okay, there is one question related to courier company. Okay, Mr. Gautam, you can answer this. How do we choose the best courier company?
How do we choose the best courier company?
Courier company, yeah. This is the question.
I think it's the most simple and the most difficult question to answer.
Yeah.
At the same time, when I choose a courier company, I think if I want to ship a good, I would always go for deliverability first and SLA performance best SLA performance over a cost. Because people do a lot of calculation and understand, okay, if I use a low cost shipment, if my SLAs go bad, also it does not matter, or my RTO goes up by 5%, it is okay, even if I choose a courier company which is 20% cheaper. I will opt for the one which is always the one which is for a better SLA. So what Shiprocket does, and if you go and if you ever use Shiprocket, when you go and select a particular order and say that I want to ship this now, it will give you a beautiful dashboard in terms of telling you exactly how those courier companies are doing. Now, because every customer has his own way of making a decision, you could choose between different areas of or key indicators that key points of KPIs. I would like to say that okay, SLA kharab hai ya iska RTO kharab hai, right? What are the things that are really impacting that seller, impacting that courier company? You could go and select one courier company based on that. But I will always say that go with the courier company which has best SLA and lowest RTO. And ShipRocket does that on the dashboard. You could select based on that information. You could also just go and set the priority of selection of a courier company based on what we recommend, and we recommend based on that. So we recommend the one which is highest, the lowest. We give maximum weightage to lowest lower RTO and highest and best SLA, and those are the more important factors that we do when we're telling you which courier company you should use.
Very well answered. Thank you so much. I believe the person who had asked this question have got the answer. You know how to choose the best courier company now. Great, great. Okay, let me take the next question. Mr. Mohit, what are the detection mechanisms to curb fake online sale frauds? Basically, to know how secure are your payments in PayU. This is related to the fake online frauds.
Yeah. So again, super interesting question, and
Yeah,
this we
yeah.
spend a lot of time with, because fraudsters are pretty smart people, right? They are constantly evolving. As you come out with something new, they will come out with something different, right?
Right.
So from a payment gateway perspective, there are two types of transaction. There are two types of fraud. One is on transaction risk, wherein the transaction itself, like for example, somebody's taken your card details or something. The second is where the merchant itself is fraudulent. So the seller itself is fraudulent, right?
Okay.
So you'll all remember this case in the past where there was Freedom Phones had come out. There's a company like that, and so and even that was on the PayU platform. And what PayU does is, or in fact, that this is true for every other payment gateway aggregator. This is just a generic business norm, is that you do a KYC before a merchant goes live.
Okay.
Post that, then you have a risk team which goes in and checks both the website and does that. And with sampling, they actually even call up users that have were goods delivered, basically to check for non-delivery risk. And they also go through social media and other sites to check whether things are happening. And in spite of all of this, the sheer number of merchants out there, some do slip through the cracks. What happens then is, whenever we see certain metrics go out of sync, or we see certain fraudulent behavior or self transactions taking place, then the normal behavior is to put the settlement on hold. So once you put the settlement on hold, essentially you can ensure that your customers do not get defrauded, right? So that's typically what happens. And in the worst case, in the event that a merchant has actually done something fraudulent, we work with the customers to actually have a police case, go after them, try to figure it out. And in many cases, work with the banks and us. And usually, in general, there is good resolution. However, here we just encourage customers who are defrauded first to resist. So when somebody gets defrauded, their first tendency is, this couldn't have happened to me. I don't want to tell anybody, right? Because there is shame there. So that first thing is to actually say, overcome that and raise the issues, right? If the issues are raised on time, so much easier to get resolutions. And the second is that not to give up. Sometimes this entire process for us to validate that indeed fraud had taken place does take time, because we then will go back to the merchant, say that the chargeback was raised, say come back and actually tell us whether proof of delivery took place. They may come and give us proof of delivery. That proof of delivery may or may not be correct. Then that's the next process to figure out whether they were genuine or not. So sometimes it does take time. So don't give up during this journey. Right, good will happen by you. We are not in the or any payment gateway is in the business of ensuring that customers are happy, because that's how payments increase, right? So that is one of the core metrics which we want to do. So I just said that's all I would like to answer. But yeah, not super easy. And on the tech side, a lot of work on the AI side, a lot of things keep happening on that side. But yeah, human beings will always find a way to game a system, right? So other people need to. It's a chore police ka game, and the police has to be smarter. That's all.
Right. Yes. Okay. Let me take the last question from the live question, because we've almost stretched for 15 minutes now. The sessions 2 also going to start. So we're supposed to start at 12. Anyways, last question, Pugal sir. How do we get GST refund on the goods exported through e-commerce using CSB we bill? And is there a provision for automatic GST 2A matching with the portal?
So first, let me answer the second part of the question. Automatic reconciliation of 2A, we don't have automatic reconciliation of 2A,
Okay.
but from the portal, you can download the JSON file and then that it can be imported into your Tally data. And based on those criteria, Tally will do the reconciliation, and it is also going to, throw out the exception saying that what is matching, what is not matching. So that is one thing that you do. Currently, we don't have direct download from the portal as of today. The refund part is concerned, like I said, in Tally, you can actually, configure your entire GST part, like the import, export, every kind of GST transaction can be done. And the refund is basically where you, based on filing of your GSTR1 return, through the IceGate and other thing, now there are a lot of integration has happened. So the moment you file your GSTR1, depending on the refund based on, say there are two kind of thing. One is, you export with LUT without IGST, and the other one is you use your IGST and then, claim a refund. So all this, internally Tally is configured the compliance requirement. So all the user need to do is capture the relevant data, and the moment you file your GSTR1, it gets integrated. And now recently they have come with auto refund. So which means you don't have to, I forgot the form name for the refund. There is a form. You don't have to actually fill up that form. So from your GSTR1, especially table 6, where you give the detail of your export, will automatically get captured, and the refund process is taken care.
Thank you. Once again, thank you all. So with this, we come to an end of session 1. We'll have to begin the session 2. Once again, thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mayur.
Thank you so
very
much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good day.